too lazy, though, to have written 3 novels. But let's continue. Love and work, and another term, a third term, death. Death and resurrection. Margaret Atwood has this great passage in, I think it's called Dialogues with the Dead, where she writes about how all novels are really about coming to terms with our mortality, coming to terms with death, and also not just that, but trying to bring back the dead. And there's so much in this book that is about can you bring back the dead? How do you reanimate them? How do you come to terms with mortality? And then with these mythical beings who live forever and refuse to change, and that is sort of their curse. Although I won't give away the ending, so why don't you just tell me about Orpheus? You
said that so beautifully. I don't feel like I have to add it.
But you're also a musician, so is there something about Orpheus in this? About bringing
not consciously, but certainly I think about death a lot, and I think about, not in a morbid way, in a nice way. I have this app on my phone called We Croak, and it reminds me 6 times a day. It says, "Reminder, you're going to die." I like it. I know. And it gives you a little quote that tells you to live in the moment or something. But it's very funny when I'm with my kids and they're like, look at my phone. It's like, reminder, you're going to die. Like, yeah, your dad's a solid dude. So for me, it's what you were saying reminded me of going back to Bucky fucking Dent. There was a quote about Joyce from, is it Edna O'Brien? Is that the author who wrote a little biography of Joyce?
I think that's close enough.
So she wrote, and I say this almost exactly in the book, and it applies to my feelings about the subway, which is, she wrote about Joyce's, the way he wrote about Dublin in Ulysses was so exact that you could rebuild the city. If the city was somehow disappeared from the earth, you could take his book and rebuild the city. And I have the son of the father in Bucky fucking Dent hope that the novel that he wrote with his dad, that if you somehow shredded those papers and mulched them, you could rebuild his father. And sometimes I think when I write, that's what I'm doing for my children. It's like I want you all to read it, and I want everybody in the world to buy it, and I want to be bestseller and all that shit. But I think ultimately, a lot of times I sit there and I think, I hope when I'm dead, my kids will read this and they'll know who I was.
Well, back to Yeats' words.
In a nice way. Did I tell you about my phone?
Yeah, the words on the page, the importance of the words on the page. What about New York City? Can you say more? We've talked a little bit about the subway going underground. We're both fans of LA. Do you live in both cities? I mean,
well, I live mostly in New York.
Bred in New York. Yeah.
I live mostly in New York now because my daughter's going to college next year at an Ivy League institution.
Where?
Brown. And my son is a freshman in high school, so I've got 3 more years in New York, and then I'm
heading back.
Yeah, and I'll go west, like the Village People song.
I think we're approaching time for the audience to ask some questions. So maybe, do we have a mic for?
You're right about the lights, by the way.
Yeah, it's hard for us to see you, but we're underground in the darkness. There are these mythical creatures, these fantastic creatures. So we'll give you a moment to think about what. And are we going to pass around a mic? Or
how many people are actually Harvard students here today? None. Oh. So when I make fun of Harvard, nobody cares. All right.
Okay, let's do that one more time. Do I see any hands at all?
Unbelievable.
No one is admitted.
one. There's one.
All right, you may answer the first question.
Questions?
Yes.
What's the hardest thing about? What is the hardest thing about writing a novel, and how did you overcome that?
It's really, I think it'll be different for different people, but for me, it was just sitting down and committing myself to doing it. Just the discipline to, once I have an idea that I think is story worthy, that's going to carry on, feels like I have many ideas and most of them are shit, and then I'll have a couple that are like, oh, that feels weighty, feels heavy, it feels like a long story, it could be a novel, and then I'll sit with it and I'll beat it out and see if it can beat it out. Are you sure you're not a Harvard student? And then and then see if I feel like it's got potential to carry that weight. And then pretty much I got to sit my ass down for the next few months, half a year, every day. I like to get up early so I can get my work done and take care of the kids later or whatever, but get up really early and sit my ass down and just write and figure it out. But, there are days when you don't want to be there for sure. No, you can.
Oh, okay. How about you in the white box?
Oh, okay. First of all, I appreciate your digs on Harvard. Putting that out there.
Digs on Harvard?
Digs on Harvard.
I love Harvard.
Anyways, what I was going to say is, I think it's something that, like, we as white people, especially when we're writing, is something that we have to be aware of, is the cultural appropriation. And I was wondering if that was something that you were thinking of or conscious at all of.
I don't think of it as white people at all. I think all culture is appropriation. I think all art is appropriation. All cultures build on one another. There's nothing. When I sit down, I don't think of myself as white or black or a man or a woman. I think of myself as a guy looking around at this world and seeing what interests me, collaging it together, and then putting the rest together with my imagination. I'm just a witness. If I start to think about what I'm allowed to talk about, I'm dead. So if someone is offended, I'll certainly have a conversation about it. But to me, all art is found art with your imagination thrown in. All art is collage of appropriation. All art is using materials that were here before you got here. All art is using materials that were created by other people of all colors, of all religions. So I don't feel that weight that seems to be so weighty to people these days, and perhaps I'm guilty, perhaps it's a function of being a white male, but that's the way I work. Not very much applause, I'll be in trouble tomorrow.
Do you remember when Emer decides to steal a book from the library? It's a book about, I think, demons.
Yeah.
And then she thinks to herself, should she do this? And realizes that stealing is, it's the gift of storytelling. The theft is the gift of storytelling.
Well, it's attributed to many people. I saw it attributed to Picasso recently, but I think it was Ben Jonson who said it about Shakespeare, which is good writers borrow and great writers steal. And what the god Hermes is the god, storytelling god, and he's the thief. So it's another word for appropriation is theft. And I think that's foundational to artistic creation. And I don't think it's political. I think it's the realm of art.
So I think your books and your songs delve so deeply into different psyches and kind of reach into people in ways, and I love that. And I wonder, I know you're not a big fan of Freud.
No, I am a big fan of Freud.
Oh, but he's a thief.
But he's what?
A thief.
Of course he's a thief.
But so
he's an artist.
Have you read?
He's not a scientist.
Well, right, okay. So have you read other?
Well, Hellman, who I reference, is a Jungian,
right.
a Jungian analyst. Jung is, a little more airy, and didn't don the mantle of science the way Freud did, the fake mantle of science the way Freud did. So, I mean, Freud's an amazing con man. He's convinced us that we all have something called an ego. We don't. It doesn't exist. It didn't exist before the 19th century. Now we're all like, yeah, I got an ego. Yeah, show me. Where is it? Open up your brain and show me where that thing is.
I could ask, what about libido? Do you feel the
Where's
same
that?
way about libido?
Show me. Open up the brain. Show me where that thing is. Mr. Scientist. So what was the question?
I didn't actually get to ask it.
Okay,
But,
go ahead.
So I was wondering if you
Fire
had
away.
read more psychologists or theorists or in preparation for and in researching, just in your own life, if you had read much in the field of psychology or if that impacted you in any way.
Well, I guess I've read a lot of Freud in translation. Not in the original German, I'm sorry to say. You could help me. Is it better in English? Linton Strachey, was he the translator? And his mission was to make it really scientific sounding, right?
Make it scientific and readable, which
Total con job, people. It was a con job from the beginning. A little side note, I reference, again, in Bucky Fucking In, I reference Freud's nephew, who was a guy whose name I've forgotten. Somebody help me? Nobody? Huh? Joe Freud, yes. No, he's the father of public relations, the father of modern advertising in America.
Bernays.
Yes,
Yeah.
Edward Bernays, actually Freud's nephew. Sigmund Freud's nephew created subliminal advertising. Yeah, exactly.
Can I
Show me where the ego is. Show me.
tell us
I'm
about
open.
the trains of thought? Because the book is so elusive, which is one of the reasons why I loved it so much.
Elusive.
Is it,
Yeah.
you are a voracious reader, and you do borrow from, promiscuously.
Or steal. Well, there was an actual trains of thought. In the subways, that they would show these, little quotes from literature or psychology or whatever. And as I rode the subway, I would see these things, and I guess I just stored it away. And when it came time to tell the story, I saw it as a convenient kind of oracle. Much the same way that there was a movie that Steve Martin wrote a while ago called L.A. Story, where he used the traffic signs in L.A. to kind of, rather than just say, SIG alert, 40 minutes to downtown, it would give him particular instructions, like get out of town or whatever. I guess I had that on my mind too, something like that, where something that was made for everybody was going to specifically have a message for my heroine.
I love those trains, and they are sort of epiphanies in a way, not just for the characters, but also for the reader, because they are so deeply relevant to what's going on. But let's go back to, and you have a question in the first row there.
Yeah, I was just wondering about, because you do acting and music, and just how do different art forms, like is being a better actor help you write books, or do you write about the field that informs your acting, or like vice versa?
If I was a better actor, I might not have had the time off. I think that I think that acting taught me a lot about writing. I got into acting as a writer. I got into acting because I wanted to write plays, and I thought that I should learn something about acting if I was going to write plays, which makes sense. And having been acting for over 30 years now, I think I have a pretty good sense of dialogue, even though wonderfully when you write a novel, you get to really luxuriate in the dialogue. If I was going to turn Miss Subways into a movie, I'd really have to cut a lot of dialogue that I like. Tarantino's good because he makes everybody talk so fast. He gets all that shit out there because he loves words so much. He just makes everybody talk so fast so he gets. It's tough to do though sometimes. Neil LaBute too. Like you can tell these playwrights who are in love with words and they make their actors just David Mamet talk fast. So I think I've learned a lot about dialogue from being an actor, and honestly, just from being on the X-Files for so long, I learned a lot about plot because I came out of studying English literature, and you don't study plot. You know, that's what they say in 7th grade. You know, what happened? What happened? Who read the book? What happened? By the time you get to graduate school, I don't even know if nobody knew what happened. Everybody was talking about Derrida. So I'd kind of forgotten. It's like the most human part of the whole thing is the story. Like, what happens? That's what every kid wants to know. What happens next? In graduate school, I was just like, semiotically, deconstruction, plot is for
But you
sissies.
studied with Harold Bloom. He was against all of that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was more of a humanist. Yeah. So it was really being on the X-Files that I kind of got back to, the show's just about what happens, you know. The show, what's important is the plot. And I think it kind of stripped me a little of my pretension in a good way as a storyteller. But obviously not all of it.
And as I am back there.
You gotta know that. Yes, what does it feel like to have to know? It's a burning. Can you buy the book and figure it out? All right, let me take a question seriously. Let me think, because I don't know offhand. Can I tell you how much I hate that kind of meta stuff? Honestly, personally, let me just tell you. The idea of crossover one show into another, it just fills me with rage. The idea that I would take my job from somewhere else and put it into a sovereign work that stands by itself fills me with shame. So the answer is probably no. Though I can't be sure that something didn't slip in. I thank Chris Carter in the acknowledgments exactly the way I was just talking to you. Okay. I thank him for the plot, for plots, for the importance of plots, and for mystery and stuff like that. So forget everything else I said.
I guess. Oh, hi. So when you spoke about not being but also
Can you speak a little louder?
oh yeah. Okay. You spoke about not being an achiever, but or perfectionist.
Yeah.
And then also in your 20s, like most people struggle with it. Do you have any advice for a very anxious 20-something?
I think your anxiety is good. I think you should be anxious. I think that's what you're supposed to be when you're 20. But it sucks. It may never go away either. But your anxiety is going to lead you to good places. It's going to lead. It's saying to you, you're not done. You're not settled. You're not doing exactly what you want to do. So that's a good thing. It's not the not comfortable thing, but it's a good thing. I think. I can't. This woman's a shrink right here. Shrink right here. She can tell you all about your ego.
Shrink wrap.
It's right here. And here.
Something you said earlier really resonated when you talked about showing up.
Can I say, I don't hate shrinks the way Tom Cruise hates shrinks. That's a very different kind of prejudice. Okay.
Yeah. You said something about showing up to write your third novel. And I'm reminded of how, what is the Woody Allen line about, can I quote Woody Allen? 97% of genius is just showing up and doing it and going ahead and saying, I can. And I think of my students who sometimes needed someone just to tell them, yes, take that paper or take that essay or that chapter of a novel and turn it into a book, and get up at 5 in the morning before you read your email or anything else and focus and concentrate. We have I saw other hands out there. Yes, in the back.
Is there what?
You have to write
Yes.
a few episodes of the X-Files.
Yeah.
Is there one that needs more than the others? Is there a paper yours?
I think the first one that I did about the baseball player meant a lot to me because it was really my meditation on race in America, told through, the lens of a network show, which is limiting, and also through the vehicle of a show ostensibly about aliens. So I got to use a lot of great found objects there, which was the show and some characters that were already established, and tell a story kind of about race and love that I wanted to tell undercover. I don't know if it's ever been received that way. I don't know, but that's the story I was telling, and yeah, I got a lot of stories from shooting that show. But it was also the first time I ever directed. It was the first time I ever wrote my own script. A lot of firsts involved. So my daughter was born, during shooting. There was a lot of stuff going on. So I have a lot of feelings around that time. And, when I look at it, I see a lot of mistakes, a lot of rookie mistakes. But I forgive them because I think the heart is in the right place of that particular episode. I went a long time not reading my reviews, many years, and I was quite happy. And I've gotten weaker recently. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of critics or criticism out there that is I don't want to say constructive because I just don't want to praise, but that is actually useful. I haven't seen a lot of it in any of my endeavors. I feel like we're at a point in time where people review the author or the writer or the person who is the actor more than they review the performance, and everybody's trying to connect the dots between the life lived and the art portrayed, and I find that to be probably the least interesting of all criticism. So, I look at reviews that say the novel is out there, and I go, fuck off. How easy and stupid is that? What does that even fucking mean? But that's all I see. Most reviews I read will find a way to use a phrase without there in it, and I'm just like, no, you've just disqualified yourself. And to me, I would love, I was saying yesterday, I would love for the book to be read without a name on it. Now, maybe it wouldn't sell, maybe people wouldn't buy it, and that would suck, but I'd be interested in those reviews. I'd like to hear those, that people who had no access to the author, or even their sex with the author. Be interesting. Stephen King.
You are going to come under fire because it's fantasy literature. It's mythical and not realistic. And there are critics who will say, no, the novel should be realistic. It should be like, well, I'm not of that persuasion, but I think you should not bother reading them because there'll be a certain number of people who just demand realism in their fiction.
I suppose, but I feel like we're inundated with realism every day now. I feel
I am on your side.
The weight of realism. on the other hand, you have the fantasy movie sequences out there that are the opposite of realism. So I'm confused as to what people want. What do you want? Tell me, I'll try to give it to you. I will. Yeah, there's a couple people. I have an editor, Jonathan Galassi at Forest Trashero, who's a terrific editor. I have some friends who I trust to bounce stuff off of or to send 30 pages to. Excuse me. Yeah, because sometimes in the middle of it, if I start to lose faith, I'll give it to somebody and go, am I barking up the wrong tree here? Is this a dead end? Is this interesting at all in any way? So sure, yeah. But mostly those moments you got to get through yourself in a way. That's the hard part about writing, where you're just kind of writing in a cul-de-sac and you don't know, trying to get on the highway, and you don't know how to get there.
Two questions. Well, one's more of a statement. The cover for this book is really cool, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the development. You touched on it on the Facebook live signing. And the second question is, you have a lot of, well, not a lot, but you have several current political references in the book. You don't have to talk about Trump, but
happy to.
But was this written relatively recently, or do you leave placeholders in your literature to fill in later for when it time gets
closer?
No,
I don't have placeholders in. Can you all hear that question? No. The question was wanting to know about the cover, and do I put placeholders for current events in the book because it would come out, say, a year after I would write it? Would I have to go back and change things? And I did have to go back and change a couple of things in this, but I don't think I don't expect such drastic happenings, and I don't really lean on current events enough to really feel like I'm going to have to rewrite completely. The only time I really had to do that was when I wrote the original script of Bucky Fucking Dent. It was 2000. I don't know, when did the Sox win the World Series? They may not know their Freud, but they know their Ortiz. They weren't juicing at all. No. Boo all you want, it doesn't change the truth. So it was A-Rod. It was even. Where was I? So I wrote Bucky Fucking Dent in like 2000 and whatever, before 2004, and then the fucking Red Sox won. It was all about how the Red Sox never won. And I thought, they screwed me. So that was an example of when I really had to go back and kind of figure out how this story works. And so I wrote an epilogue basically for 2004, because the original story ended in 1979, and then I wrote this epilogue that took place in 2004. But generally, I haven't had the need to do that. The cover, I wanted the subway map to kind of be apparent on her face, and we talked a lot about it, and Rodrigo Corral, who did the cover, he figured out a way with this acetate, as if you press down on it, the subway map comes out, and it almost looks like veins in a person's face, and I just thought, wow, that's just so perfect. So I would like you to judge this book by its cover.
Yes, question. Yes.
One comment and question. One of my favorite episodes of the X-Files is the one where I think he's a shapeshifter, and he looks like you, and every time he looks in the mirror, he goes, "You're one fine-looking agent." Remember that episode?
It's not exactly what he said, but I
love that episode. And I'm not a musician, but I love music, and music has saved my life. And I'm just wondering, what do you get out of playing music and writing music that you don't get out of all the other artistic stuff?
I think I say you are one damn good-looking man. I think. I like fine though. Music is, we all know what music is. It's a different wavelength from everything else we do. So I get from making music whatever you get from listening to it, and I get to collaborate with people musically, and I get to be in that moment of a group making something, and get to tell stories that are crystallized and compact. I mean, just lyrically, the lyric is so short and so evocative and specific and yet completely obscure, and it's a real magic act to try and write a good lyric that way. So I get all those things.
Can I just ask about Neil Gaiman again? Art is therapy. There's a wonderful commencement speech that he gives about making good art. So when you're confronted with trauma or pain or an injury, the response to it, he says, is make good art. Do you see that therapeutic value in your art making?
I think that's a byproduct. I think it would be a mistake to try and make that the intention, because then I think you're just going to get vomit. I suppose it can be. Maybe the original inspiration is to try to get something out, but then the artist has to come in and shape it. Otherwise, we are inundated with memoirs, and in a sense, that's what that is. You take your memoir and you shape it. How do you shape it? What is the story you're telling? Or are you just merely regurgitating horrible things that hurt you?
It makes so much sense, because then it has to move from psychology to the mythical and fantasy. And I see, yes. In the front.
Hi. First off, you're doing an incredible job.
He says, first off, you're doing an incredible job. He said it with a super awesome Boston accent.
It's actually Worcester accent, but that's okay.
Worcester.
2018, David.
Forgive me.
It's been a great year for you. You finished a great season of the X-Files, one of the best.
You got the retrospective.
You got a great new album out. And I trust this lovely young woman here that it sounds like a great new book. And according to what you said the other night on Stephen Colbert, we can see Bucky fucking Dent becoming a movie in the 40th anniversary of when it happened.
Hope to shoot in August, yeah.
Is there anything more you can tell us? Or
no, because I'm in the midst of casting it, and if I were to tell you who I want, and then I didn't get them, and I cast somebody else, I would suck for the person.
But you directed?
Yes.
Are you writing the screenplay?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Yes.
So I'm going to challenge that X-Files one is the best one ever, where the lost artist part of the forehead slap. Hysterical.
Yeah, Darren Morgan is a terrific writer.
So on all of the characters you played or written about, is there one in particular that you hold close to your heart that you feel maybe has something to do?
No, and as I said earlier, it's like those aren't questions that interest me personally, because I feel like what I do is kind of a personal magic trick, and if I were to sit here and tell you who I'm more like, it would be like, that's giving away my magic, and I don't want to do that yet. Maybe when I'm done. Come back to me when I'm done, and I'll tell you. But they're all in, you can't cut them off from the time and place when I was doing them, the life that I had at that time, the history, what was going on, when I went home, it's all, for me, it's all part of my life, and it's not just, well, that character meant this to me. It's like that time. So they all have really important aspects of me or to me. I don't mean to belittle your question. I just want to say that those questions make me uncomfortable, because I don't want to talk about what part of me is in is in a character, and I know that goes against what people think of as good sense at this point anymore. But I really feel like that's part of my secret that I get to keep, and I apologize for keeping it. Very taboo. Once again, I'm on the wrong side.